Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about the 12 bar blues in E. I got such good rave reviews about my demonstration and discussion about the 12 bar blues in A. I thought I would do a video explaining the second most common key for blues improvisation, which is the key of E. So E and A are pretty much the two main improvisation or keys that you'll find blues in. There is, of course, G. G minor is definitely a very popular one, and C minor is another really, really popular one. But today we're going to be talking about the second most, I think, pretty much most popular key of blues improvisation, which is E. So the main thing for two elements that I really kind of pinpoint when I'm talking about a 12 bar blues is your 5 pentatonics and the 1-4-5 progression, which is your, in the key of E, the E chord is your 1, the A chord is your 4 chord, and then the B is your 5 chord. Now I put up here 12 bar blues in E, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we have our 1 chord, which is E, our 4 chord, which is A, and then our 5 chord, which is B. And when you're dealing with blues, each chord can be considered what's called a dominant 7th chord. So when you're doing the 12 bar blues in E and you're talking about the dominant 7th chord, each chord can be considered a 4-note chord. You can have your root, you can have the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. And these are all notes that you can use to your advantage when you're doing your improvisation. Now I'm going to go through all the pentatonics and I'm going to discuss how to play these 7th chords. And at the end of this video, I'm going to do a full demonstration over a backing track and applying all these concepts to a backing track. And one other thing I wanted to point out is I do have a blues book that is on Amazon. It's called Blues Guitar in Your Hands by Troy Toma, which is me. So if you want to have a very, very in-depth charts, diagrams, licks, there's tons of licks in here, please go purchase this book at Amazon and you'll get all this information and plus much, much more for blues improvisation. So let's get to it. So in that chart diagram, which you can certainly take a screenshot of, shows the 4 notes in each of the chords, which we're going to get into in a second, which is the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of each chord. So, of course, I'm not going to explain all these 5 pentatonic shapes, but I'm just going to run through them. So if you haven't memorized your 5 pentatonic shapes, again, either grab my book or off of Amazon or look them up on YouTube or the internet. So these are the 5 pentatonic shapes, which I always go through with all of my students. So this is the first one, which is universal. Everybody knows the shape 1. Okay, so that's shape 1. And there's 5 of them. And this is shape 2. Okay, and then shape 3. Shape 4. And then shape 5. So again, memorize those 5 shapes because those are going to be a huge advantage to your blues improvisation. As long as, and also essential to know all the notes along the fretboard. I mean, that's just, that goes without saying. So if you haven't memorized those yet, then again, I strongly suggest to, and I have a previous video talking about how to memorize those notes. So the 2 elements that I use, and I find, which I've studied, done an in-depth study for like 10 years in blues improvisation, and I always wonder, why does Stevie Ray Vaughan, why does Eric Clapton, why does Billy Gibbons, all their notes sound good? So I did a huge in-depth study, and I found pretty much the 2 main principles in blues improvisation is using your 5 pentatonic scales and considering each of the 3 chords of the 1-4-5 progression dominant 7th chords. And you want to kind of, mix and match those 2 elements together, the 5 pentatonic shapes and each of these chords being a dominant 7th. And I'm going to explain how to kind of go about using some of these licks and stuff. So the progression, we have the blues progression, and it's like, here's the E chord. And then we go to our 4 chord, which is the A chord. And then it goes back to the E, the 1 chord. And then you go to your 5 chord, the B. And then back to the 4 chord. And then the 1 chord. And then you end it off with your 5, the B7. So when you're dealing with these progressions and you're trying to make your solos sound good, you can get away with playing just your pentatonic. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, after a while, it kind of gets a little boring and it sounds kind of stagnant and stale after a while, because you're just using 5 notes, right? And just those same 5 notes. Now, if you want to spice up your solos, make them sound more interesting, kind of have a little edginess to them, some tension, which is always good, and some phrasing, some great phrasing. So when I'm on the 1 chord, again, I'm choosing the pentatonic or the dominant 7th chord. Now I'm going to go through a couple of these dominant 7th arpeggios, and I'm going to explain these, and then I'll show you how you can put them into some of your solos. So there's a dominant 7th arpeggio shape here on the 5th string for your E. So you go 7th fret of the 5th string, which is the A string, 6th fret of the 4th string, your D string, 9th fret of your D string, 7th fret of the G string, 9th fret of the G string, then you go 9th fret of the B string, 12th fret of the B string, 10th fret of the high E string, and then 12th fret. And what you're doing is you're going through the root 3rd, 5th, and 7th, 2 octaves. So 7th fret 5th string, you got your root. 6th fret 4th string, you got your 3rd, G sharp. 9th fret 4th string, you got the 5th, which is the B, and then 7th fret of the 3rd string, you got the D, which is the 7th. And now you're just basically starting that arpeggio over again. Now you got the root again, the E on the 9th fret, G string. Then on the 9th fret of the B string, you have your 3rd, G sharp, and then on the 12th fret of the B string, you have your B, of course. And then on the 10th fret of the high E string, you have your 7th, which is your D, and then you're back to your E on the 12th fret. So that's 2 octaves of an E7 arpeggio. Okay, so if you mix and match that with your pentatonic scale, it sounds interesting, and the listener really never gets bored. And that's kind of like I said, when I'm studying, you know, Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and all the blues greats, these are the elements that they're choosing to use to make their solos sound good and interesting. So that's the E, and then for the A, you can start this arpeggio here. So 6th string, that's your root, that's your A, 6th string 5th fret, 5th string 4th fret on the A string, and then 7th fret of the A string. Then you have 5th fret of the 4th string, which is the D string. Then you have the 7th fret of the 4th string, 6th fret of the 3rd string, 2nd fret of the 2nd string, 1st fret of the 5th fret of the 1st string, and then 8th fret of the 2nd string, the B string. So on the 6th string, 5th fret, you got the A. 4th fret, you have the C sharp, which is your major 3rd. On the 7th fret of the A string, you have your E, which is the 5th. Then on the 5th fret of the 4th string, the D string, you have your G, which is the 7th. And now we're going through this octave a second time, 2nd octave. So you got your A again, 7th fret of the 4th string, C sharp, 3rd, the 3rd of the chord on the 6th fret of the 3rd of the G string. Then you got the 5th of the chord, which is 5th fret of the B string, the root of the chord, which is the A. Anything on the 6th string and the 5th string are the same because they're both E's, right? So you got your A there on the high E string, 5th fret, and then you've got your G, the 7th of the chord, and the 8th fret of the B string. So there's your A7 arpeggio. And all you do with arpeggios is you just move them around. So the next one, for the 5 chord, the B chord, you just move that up 2 frets, exact same thing. So 7th fret is your B on the 6th string, D sharp, which is the 3rd of the chord, 6th fret of the A string, 9th fret of the A string, you have the 5th, which is F sharp, 7th fret of the D string, you have the 7th of the chord, then you start the arpeggio over again, so B on the 9th fret of the D string, D sharp on the 8th fret of the G string, which is your 3rd, F sharp, 7th fret of the B string, and then, which is your 3rd, and then, or sorry, the 5th, and then the root is going to be on the high E string, 7th fret, and then you have the 7th, which is the A, on the 10th fret of the B string. So that's your B7 arpeggio. And you can do those kind of forwards and backwards, right? And if you wanted to do that over an E, you could do the same thing, but just move it up to the 12th fret. So, okay, so 12th fret, 6th string, 11th fret, 5th string, 14th fret, 5th string, 12th fret, 4th string, 14th fret, 4th string, 13th fret of the 3rd string, 12th fret of the 2nd string, 12th fret of the high E string, and then 15th fret. Okay, so root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and then root again. So, okay, so those are the arpeggios. Now, the other element that you can actually use over dominant 7th is Mixolydian modes. So if you ever played a Mixolydian mode, you know, say A Mixolydian, or B Mixolydian, and I'm not going to describe each one of these. You can find these all on the internet, these shapes of a Mixolydian mode, starting with the root on the 6th string, and then the E Mixolydian. So because each chord can be considered a dominant 7th chord, you can, you know, consider each chord to be a Mixolydian mode derived from a Mixolydian. So you got the E7 arpeggio, you got your pentatonic scales, and then you can also incorporate dominant 7th or Mixolydian modes as well. So again, I'm going to give you a couple licks for each chord that I like to use when I'm doing some blues improvisation in E. So here's a few licks that I like to use. So say you're on the E chord, and something really simple, I just like doing this hammer on from the 3rd to the 5th fret on the B string. Do a pull off to the 3rd fret, so that's 7th to the root, 7th, and then I grab the 4th fret of the G string, and then go back to the 2nd string, 3rd fret, 4th fret of the G string, do a pull off, do a slide from the 4th to the 2nd fret, do a pull off open, and then land on the 4th string, 2nd fret. So that's just a cool. You can do a little trill there if you want. So that's over the 1 chord, right? So over the E chord. Another cool area that I really like to use is kind of in shape. You're starting kind of shape 4. You're in shape 4 in the pentatonics, you know, right there. So here's another idea. So you can do basically the same idea, but starting on the G string, 9th fret, which is your E, do a pull off to the 7th fret, and then do a slide from the ninth to the ninth to the 7th fret backwards, and then do a pull off to the 5th fret, and then play the 7th fret of the A string. So that's a, and then if you want, you can mix and match these. Do a hammer on from the 5 to the 6, which is minor to major, G natural, G sharp, and then land on the E. So that's kind of another cool blues lick. And now the other main quality of blues, which I've discovered that is one of the favorable amongst every single blues player out there, all the greats, B.B. King, Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert King, all of them, Billy Gibbons, they use the minor to major element of each chord. Now, especially on the 1 chord, which is a very, very common thing. So the minor third, and it's the third that determines the minor or major quality of any chord. Now the third, as we discussed, root, third, 5th, 7th. So the root of the E is E, third is G sharp, 5th is the B, and the 7th is the D. So the third is G. So you can have G natural, which is in your pentatonic scale, E minor pentatonic, G right there, G natural. But when you're doing your E7, E dominant 7th arpeggio, E, G sharp, so you can mix those two, and that's what I was saying, mix those pentatonics with these elements of the dominant 7th chords. So what you want to do is do a hammer on from the 12 to the 13, and that's minor to major, G to G sharp, then bar the first 2 strings, 12th fret B string, 12th fret high E string, and then land on the 7th of the chord, which is the D of the 15th fret of the B string. So, and then you can just come down your pentatonic and then maybe add a flat 5th, which is your B flat of the G string. So that's your 15th fret of the G string, B flat, A on the 14th fret, G natural on the 12th fret, and land on the E. So, okay, so that G to G sharp, that's a very, very common. Okay, so that's kind of one of my favorite things to do. There's a few licks there for over the E chord, right? So you got the first one, or else you can do the one that's kind of starting in shape 4. Or else you can kind of do this one here. That starts over there. Now, the other element that, of course, we're going to be talking about is the 4 chord. Now, the 4 chord is your A7 or your A chord. So when you're doing the A, so a few things that I like to do over the A chord. One is I like doing the A7 arpeggio. So what you're doing there is you're sliding from the 4th to the 6th fret, from the B to the C sharp. Then you're going to bar the first 2 strings, 5th fret of the B string, 5th fret of the high E string, and then land on the 8th fret, which is the G. So you're going 3rd, 5th, root, 7th. So, and you can just kind of circle around that over the. And I like to kind of slide into this A major because you're over a dominant 7th chord here, right? So you're kind of dealing with A major. So if you do the A7 arpeggio, then you slide back. You can slide into the A7. And kind of end your lick off in this A major pentatonic area, or kind of F sharp, but F sharp minor, but A major, that's for your tonality. So that's kind of, you know, one of the licks that I like to use over the 4-chord. And then you can do a little sassy little half step bend on the G string 4th fret to a C natural. You can do a little bit of that. So that's over the A chord. There's, you know, many different things. You can bend on the high E string 7th to 9th fret. Now over the B chord, do the same thing. Now you're B major. And over the B chord, you can do these, you know, these 6th. So 11th fret, G string, high E string, 10th fret, both strings, 9th fret, and then you're on your B7, so it'll be 8th fret G string, 7th fret high E string. And then one other thing I like to do is my minor to major, 10th to 11th fret, so D natural to D major, or sorry, D natural to D sharp, so that's minor to major, and then play the B, so that's over the. And there you go. Well, there you go, folks. There's an in-depth explanation of how to make your blues solo sound good in the key of E. So, and you can take a screenshot of this chart behind me here if you want, and it's got all the notes in there so you can study those and knock those out on the guitar and utilize those to your advantage. And again, I have my blues book, Blues Guitar in Your Hands, and this is on Amazon. So please go check that out. And it's got all this and much more in that book there. So, and now I'm going to do a demonstration using all these elements. Cheers. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe to this channel, as I will be making more videos for your entertainment, enjoyment, and education. Bye for now.